fast out of town. Does he help them win? You're under 500. Aaron Judge helps the Yankees win. You're paying the player $300 million. You better be sure that guy's going to help you get over the hump. For some reason, this guy is completely lost on calling plays. Maybe he's a therapist. Jackson crying to the referee. No, he didn't. Hello for a new show of the Sports Loudmouth. My name is Errol Marks. My co-host, Speedy, Petey, and our executive producer, Mr. Aaron Fishman. No Tommy Scoops tonight, as he is working. Remember, you can call us at 631-672-3108 is the number to call. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including the Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Mondays and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out our local listings for all our shows is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. At 9 o'clock, we will be talking to former Yankees, Guardians, and Rangers pitcher Nick Goody. Played from 2015 to 2020. He will be on the show. We'll get into the Yankees. We'll get into the Guardians. Both teams making the playoffs. The Rangers, who won the World Series last year, are not making the playoffs this year, which is a very big surprise, especially what they did with the last 3 weeks of the season and then going into the playoffs and making the run that they did. They made specific moves at the trade deadline last year that gave them that boost and made them go all the way to the World Series and win. This year, they didn't have that luck. And at 10 o'clock, we will be talking to former Broncos, Titans, Lions, and Chargers defensive tackle Sylvester Williams. If you don't know who he is, he played from 2013 to 2020. He was a defensive tackle. I remember him on the Titans. So he will be joining us. We'll get into the NFL. We'll get into some of the teams that he played for. A lot of interesting conversations. So why don't we get into it? Because this Deion Sanders story is fantastic. And if you're a Deion Sanders fan, which you all know I'm not, but I want to get into it. At his press conference, Deion Sanders said that you can compare Shohei Ohtani with Tom Brady and Michael Jordan. He added that Ohtani is doing things we have never seen before and has influenced baseball the way Jordan and Brady did in their sports. He added that it doesn't matter that Shohei Ohtani hasn't won championships because it is harder to control a baseball game than any other sport. This season will be Shohei Ohtani's first playoff appearance in his 7-year career. Ohtani leads the National League in 6 offensive categories this season. Ohtani became just the 3rd player in MLB history with 50 home runs and 50 stolen bases. First of all, for the last couple of years, people have been comparing Shohei Ohtani to Babe Ruth. Babe friggin' Ruth. Babe Ruth, the greatest baseball player to ever play baseball. I do not believe Shohei Ohtani, as good as he is, offensively, even as a pitcher, is anywhere close to Babe Ruth. Now, what Shohei Ohtani did this year was fantastic. We'll never probably see that again for the next 20 to 25 years. But Shohei Ohtani didn't have to play any outfield position, infield position, and he didn't even have to play on the mound. All he had to worry about is getting up to the plate, smacking balls all over the field, including home runs, and stealing bases. That's all he had to worry about. It is impressive what Shohei Ohtani has done. There's no question that he is impressive as a baseball player. But what Shohei Ohtani has done this year, is it better than what Aaron Judge has done for the New York Yankees? If you look at what Aaron Judge has done this year, he's batting over 1,000. How many players in history do you remember batted over 1,000, hit over 55 home runs, batting .320, and plays an everyday position? How many players do you know that's ever done that? And the answer, the last player to do that for the New York Yankees, Babe friggin' Ruth. So if you want to compare somebody to Babe Ruth, it's Aaron Judge. Now, as far as what I believe what Shohei Ohtani is and comparing him to Michael Jordan and Tom Brady, what Shohei Ohtani has done this year, there is no comparison to what other sports and other athletes have done in their sports. Okay? Tom Brady was sensational as a quarterback. He was sensational. But Tom Brady was drafted in football. He was drafted as that 6th-round draft pick. Shohei Ohtani was really bidded for by a baseball team. The Angels bid for him. Michael Jordan was drafted in the 1st round by the Chicago Bulls. Shohei Ohtani was never drafted. So to compare these guys, I understand what he's trying to say. I understand what Deion Sanders is trying to get to. The player that he has turned out to be, as sensational as he is, as a superstar, and how he's turned really the Dodgers into a must-watch baseball team. Tom Brady and Michael Jordan did the same for both their respectable teams. But there are other players that did that for their respectable teams. You're going to tell me Aaron Judge doesn't make the Yankees a much-watched baseball team? When you watch Aaron Judge, you don't know when he's going to hit 2, 3 home runs in a game. But everybody keeps talking about Shohei Ohtani. Look how impressive Shohei Ohtani is. Last year, we had a hitter that batted almost 370 all season long. 370. That's effing impressive, but nobody speaks about it. All they talk about is $70 million. People forget what he was doing early this season, getting caught with betting on baseball. People forget that. You know why? Because of how great he is as a baseball player. Now, to Deion Sanders. Why is Deion Sanders bringing up or comparing Shohei Ohtani to Tom Brady and Michael Jordan? I would like to hear about what's going on with your team. Where do you believe this team is going moving forward for the rest of the NCAA season? That's what I want to hear. College football is big right now. And Keith, we will get into all of what you're saying right now. I have to attack what Deion Sanders just said at his press conference because it makes no sense. And Deion loves to bring up things that have nothing to do with his sports team or nothing to do with his own team. He wants to bring up stuff that has nothing to do with the conversations that we want to know about specifics. His son, where this season is lying for Colorado. Are they going to make the playoffs? What is his predictions moving forward when it comes to his team? That's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear what he thinks about Shohei Ohtani and comparing him to Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. Now, again, Shohei Ohtani he's a fantastic player. And everybody wants to talk about him. Everybody. But there's been a lot of fantastic things that have happened this year. Caitlin Clark being another. Why haven't we heard anything from Deion Sanders about Caitlin Clark? How impressive Caitlin Clark was all season long. What she's done for the WNBA. How she's changed the WNBA. Has Shohei Ohtani changed the MLB? Seriously. We can argue the most impressive thing this year was what Aaron Judge did. And Shohei Ohtani. How about Chris Sale doing what he did this year? Probably the comeback player of the year. How many losses does he have? 3? Came back this year and won, 18, 19 games for the Atlanta Braves when everybody gave up on him, including the Boston Red Sox, who decided, hey, you know what? We don't want him anymore, and flush him down the toilet. It's true. But Deion Sanders, when he mentions Shohei Ohtani, Yes, it's impressive what he's doing. There's no question. It was an impressive year by Shohei Ohtani. Did anybody doubt that Shohei Ohtani wasn't going to have a great year just stepping in a box and swinging at a baseball? Last year, look at his numbers. How many home runs did he have last year? How many RBIs did he have last year? Now, again, I don't want to hear from Deion Sanders. I would have rather heard from Brian Cashman. Brian Cashman, who has obviously is one of the great GMs right now in professional baseball, and he's been a part of the Yankees organization for over, 40 years? He's been the Yankees, the most impressive thing I've seen in sports since I grew up watching baseball, basketball, football, hockey, all the sports, is the fact that the New York Yankees haven't had a losing season since 1992. The 92-93 season. That was the last time the Yankees have had a losing season. That's more impressive than Shohei Ohtani hitting 50-50. How about Barry Bonds not going to the Hall of Fame? That is more of a story than Shohei Ohtani hitting 50-50. But again, everybody wants to talk about Shohei Ohtani. Why didn't Deion Sanders bring up about the whole betting scheme? Does he know anything about it?
Maybe he's in on it with his Arabian partners.
Who knows? He's in a lot of trouble himself. I mean, seriously, I don't want to hear what Deion Sanders thinks about Shohei Ohtani. I really don't. I just want to. It's still, we're in the middle of the college football season. There's a lot of football left. His team is what, 2-3?
Something like that.
They're like 2-3, 2-4. They're fighting to try to make this playoff, which they're not, because they've already lost 3 games. I want to hear about where he believes his team is going to go by the end of the season. Is his team actually going to beat one of these top 25 teams right now in the nation? Because he's got a couple of big games lined up. I want to hear about that. I want to hear about how you're going to contend and compete with these teams.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you don't really need to be saying that kind of thing vocally. It seems like this.
Do you want to hear, honestly, Speedy, if you're a sports fan and you're even a Deion Sanders fan, do you really want to hear if Deion Sanders believes that Shohei Ohtani could be compared to Tom Brady and Michael Jordan? Honestly.
It doesn't have to be public now. It's something that you could say, all right, you could joke around with your teammates that are baseball
fans. Keith, we know about Deion Sanders playing baseball. He wasn't even a great baseball player. I don't care what if Deion Sanders wanted to compare Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback, or a corner right now in football, compare it to himself or compare it to somebody that he remembers or somebody he played with, that's different. Deion Sanders did play baseball. He wasn't a great baseball player, and I don't want to hear it from anybody out there that believes it. He wasn't a great baseball player. He was a decent baseball player. Decent.
Mm-hmm. And I think he says some interesting points about like not controlling your own destiny in the playoffs, which obviously Shohei Ohtani, because he was on the dysfunctional Angels forever, has never had a chance to get to the playoffs. But it is harder in baseball. There's more uncontrollable aspects than there is in football or basketball. Hockey and baseball are probably the two that are the hardest to control, just because there's so many factors. So I think he's right about that part of it. And again, the influence he's had on the game globally for baseball is strong, but it's not as strong as what Michael Jordan did for basketball. Like that kind of thing is not even close. Like Michael Jordan, like you talk about all the time, the shoe deals, the European players, the European leagues now in basketball. Ohtani definitely revolutionized like the two-way game of baseball, making the game stronger internationally, but not to the level Michael Jordan has. And like you said, even Caitlin Clark, not even to the level that Caitlin Clark could.
As a pitcher, where was he ranked last year? As a pitcher, probably 15th or so. I think he was ranked in the 20s, early 20s. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was 20th or 19th when it comes to all purpose numbers, when it comes to ERA, WHIP, and all the big numbers and all those calculus numbers that they have now. Sabermetrics or whatever they call it. Yeah. He's not even a top 10 pitcher in baseball. He's not even a top 10 pitcher in baseball. But everybody says he's the Babe Ruth of baseball right now. How is he the Babe Ruth of baseball? What was Babe Ruth's numbers when he was pitching?
Yeah.
Now, it was a different game. But at that time, baseball was different. He was the best pitcher in baseball. He was the best.
Mm-hmm.
and the best hitter in baseball.
And Ohtani needs a much bigger sample to even get to that discussion first, especially pitching, which he's missed almost 2 full years already. He missed this year, obviously didn't pitch this year, and the COVID year and the beginning of the 2021 season. He needs more time to grow as a pitcher to be able to say that kind of thing. Now, obviously, Babe Ruth only hit at the end of his career when he went to the Yankees. Shohei Ohtani's doing both at once besides this year. So can he keep it up? I don't know, but he's 30 years old. But if he does, maybe if another 5 years, then we could maybe start.
Babe Ruth was 94 and 46, and his ERA was 2.28.
Yeah, Ohtani's is at least 3. So
he's nowhere close to Babe Ruth.
Shohei Ohtani was supposed to be. He was compared to Babe Ruth in 2018 when he came into professional baseball. I mean, he played professionally in Japan, fine, but the Japanese league is very different. That's why it's still going to have that comparison for his entire career. But he's not going to get there. He needs at least another 5 like these types of years in order for that kind of thing to be happening. Like you said, Babe Ruth transcended the game of baseball. He is the biggest influence in the game of baseball.
The fact is, right now, I don't want to hear what Deion Sanders has or thinks about Shohei Ohtani and professional baseball. I want to hear what he sees or where he sees his team moving forward this coming season or this season on making the college playoffs, or not even making the college playoffs, just moving forward and where he sees his team. Because I remember last year, you say he's 3-1. Okay, he's 3-1 right now.
Again, every 3-1 is different.
He was 3-0 last year. He was 3-0 last year, and then they didn't win a game after that. That's the problem. I think they won 1 game after that of something.
And then they also collapsed against Stanford, which was hilarious.
So, again, I do care because I'm not a big fan of Deion Sanders and what he has to say. That's why, Keith. That's the whole point of this. You don't like it? Then don't listen to it.
Keith, the other thing, too, is...
And nobody said Ohtani's not amazing, okay? But to say that Shohei Ohtani is compared to Tom Brady and Michael Jordan, Shohei Ohtani's been in the league for what, 7 years?
7 years, yep.
Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. Tom Brady played 25 years of the NFL football career. And then Michael Jordan played over 20 years. Okay. When he gets to that point and he's ready to retire, then you can decide or try to start comparing him to Michael Jordan and Tom Brady, because there is no comparison. None. And by the way, it means a lot to win championships. It does. And by the way, this is the first time he's heading to the playoffs.
Right. And you got to remember, Keith, as well, like maybe him doing it, if he does it for even like 5 years less than that as a two-way player, maybe is a more impressive feat, but he has to do it for a much longer range of time. He was hurt for 2 different seasons pitching combined, this year and 2020 and 2021. And hitting wise, he also missed an entire season as well when he was with the Angels. So he needs plenty more time to do that. Now, again, do you want to make the Ichiro argument and combine his Japanese numbers? Fine. But again, he's still not to the level between influence and accomplishments and dominance of the sport anywhere close to Michael Jordan.
And I understand what he is trying to say, and he wants to create a stir. He wants to take all the pressure off his team. So he brings up a ridiculous statement like this about obviously Shohei Ohtani, Tom Brady, and Michael Jordan, and it takes all the pressure off his team going into this weekend's football game. And maybe that's what he's trying to do. I don't know what he's trying to do. I just don't care what he thinks about Shohei Ohtani, Tom Brady, and Michael Jordan. You can speak about this at the end of the season when it has no meaning. The season has no meaning to him anymore. Then you can speak about how impressed you've been with Shohei Ohtani and how great Tom Brady and Michael Jordan was. And you want to compare his greatness to those 3 guys or 2 guys and trying to compare all 3 of them together. I don't know what he's trying to do. Again, his statements behind it has nothing to do with the college football season.
Don't you have to win championships to be compared to the greatest champions of all time? Whatever happened to that, Deion? You forgot that that's why we considered you one of the greatest players of all time. There have been a lot of great cornerbacks, none that have won as many championships as you did in a short period of time with multiple teams. People forget that he went to that 49ers team and won there and then went back. So and got it with Dallas after that. So that's why he was considered the best. He was great at skills, but there were guys like Darrell Green who were great cornerbacks that we don't talk about in the same light, that may have been just as talented, if not more so, at different stretches of their career. Darrell Revis, right?
There's plenty of guys. Champ Bailey. He did, actually. He won with the Patriots. We forget that. I want to forget that when he won with the Patriots. But when he came back, he was obviously, I think he was traded to Tampa, from Tampa to New England. And then he went to New England for a year. and he won a Super Bowl over there.
And then he went back to the Jets.
He
And
wasn't
then he
the
went back
same
to the
guy
Jets
by
and
then,
just
though.
absolutely blew. But that's a whole nother story. Again, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, but and his peak wasn't as long as Deion's, and we all know that. But Ohtani hasn't won anything. He was on the Angels. The Angels suck. They've been terrible since when they went in 2002.
2002.
They've been. It's been over 20 years that they've been mostly terrible. And they had Trout, who was the best player in the league for almost a decade, and Ohtani at the same time. And I don't think they broke 500.
Nope.
So let's pump the brakes a little bit on comparing them to MJ and Tom Brady. That makes zero sense. Now, statistically, he's putting up numbers we haven't seen. No one's done 50-50 before. He's going to end up at 55-55 possibly before the season's done. It's unbelievable. He's also a DH, and he's a pitcher, and a very good pitcher when he's able to pitch. Except he's
not
never had
pitching
more
right
than,
now. He's not pitching right
He's
now.
had
And
one
Aaron Judge is
season.
an everyday player. I think
yeah.
that's more impressive. If Deion Sanders wants to bring up something or compare somebody to one of these guys or two of these guys, how about comparing Aaron Judge? But Aaron Judge hasn't won a championship either. He sucks in the playoffs. So you cannot bring up Tom Brady and Michael Jordan and try to compare any of these guys to any of those two. Because honestly, there's no comparison. There's none. And the same thing with Babe Ruth. When I hear Babe Ruth is being compared Shohei Ohtani's being compared to Babe Ruth, I think it's been more of a comparison of what Aaron Judge has done this year to compare to Babe Ruth than anything Shohei Ohtani has done.
Well, it's a lazy comparison. It's because Babe Ruth was a pitcher and a hitter. So it's the first name that people jump to.
First two-way player.
He was a pitcher and a hitter when he played for Boston. When he came to the Yankees, he never pitched.
No, but he was, he hit when he was, before the DH and everything as well. And he was obviously a great hitter when he was out there, but he wasn't a full-time hitter until the greatest trade of all time, when he was traded for money so that the Boston owner could fund a Broadway play. And that's why they traded Babe Ruth. It's one of the great, No Nanette, one of the great stories in baseball history. And it completely changed two franchises for almost 100 years. Well, I don't think anyone's looking at the Dodgers and saying, this is the no Nanette of the Angels. This is going to put them over the top. They're going to win for 10 years in a row. Maybe they need some pitching. Maybe it's not just get a guy who is kind of really a great hitter, but he can also pitch. But do you really want him to pitch? And that's the thing that we're going to be talking about in the next couple of years with him.
I don't think he should ever pitch again. After what he's doing this year, I think you should just concentrate as a DH, stealing bases and hitting home runs and being the hitter that you are. You will have more of a life as a baseball player than going back on the mound and throwing your arm out again. He throws his arm out again, his career is over. That's what I'm going to say. What is this, his second time he's tore his UCL? If he does it again, that's it. He's over. It's over for him. So the fact that he's coming back and he actually played all season and hit the way he has, it's very impressive. No question that he is. But to say that what he did this year isn't comparable for what Aaron Judge has done over there with the Yankees, I think Aaron Judge has done this year is more impressive than what Shohei Ohtani did. That's just, and I'm not saying that as a Yankee fan. For a guy that's been declared a power hitter, that's what everybody says. He's a power hitter. He strikes out a lot. He doesn't strike out as much anymore. He's batting over 323. He's playing in the American League, which is a harder league conference to play in. Okay. You've hit over 55 home runs. You're playing for the New York Yankees with more pressure on you than anywhere else. I mean, and he's an everyday outfield. And by the way, he's playing center field, and his WAR is one of the best in the league. He's got one of the best WAR in baseball, and he's not even a center fielder.
Number one.
Right.
Number one.
He's got the best WAR in baseball, and he doesn't even play center field. How about that? That's not impressive, but people forget that because he's playing for the Yankees, and he hasn't shown up in the playoffs. And I want to hear that from other people like Deion Sanders. You know why? Because Deion Sanders wants to bring up things that have nothing to do with what's going on with his football team. I don't want to hear Deion Sanders ever compare Shohei Ohtani to Michael Jordan or Shohei Ohtani. I Michael Jordan or Tom Brady. I don't want to hear it anymore until he's done with his career and he does as many great things for the Dodgers as those two players did for their teams. That's when we can start comparing Shohei Ohtani to those two players.
Yeah, the transcendent element of the two-way player makes it definitely interesting, but like you were describing, Fish, it might be hard for him to get back to that form on a consistent basis, pitching-wise. Does he come back to that same way? We've seen it with Jacob deGrom having 2 different elbow injuries as well, and the shoulder injuries he had at the end of his Mets career. Like, that kind of thing has hurt him where he didn't come back until like last week or something like that. So will Shohei Ohtani be coming to that? And Shohei Ohtani at his peak value wasn't Jacob deGrom either.
And again, Keith, nobody's saying that it's not impressive. It's very impressive. It's very impressive. I don't want to hear or even think about comparing those two players or Shohei Ohtani to those two players until his career is over. Those guys had long-lasting careers, and they dominated their sports for a very, very long time. And by the way, we might never see that again. You're going to tell me we're never going to see somebody like Shohei Ohtani? We're already seeing somebody right now in the American League. Maybe not as a pitcher, but he's not pitching this year. We have seen that from an American League player that's having a better year than he has. So you're going to tell me that 50 stolen bases and 50 home runs is more impressive than 323, 55, or maybe by the time he's done with the season, 56 and 60, maybe he has 60 home runs and 140 running RBIs and how many runs batted in or whatever it is. He's going to have better numbers than Shohei Ohtani. So you're going to tell me that Shohei Ohtani hitting 50-50 is more impressive than what Aaron Judge has done? I don't think so. That's just my opinion. I don't think so.
And also, you brought up the stolen bases too. Like, that's another thing that maybe is going to have longevity questions as well if he does keep getting hurt.
The bases are how big? They look like pizza boxes.
Well, yeah. Not only that, I'm talking about like even just running as a whole. Like Fish, you were talking about like the injury risks too with him hitting this year and looking at base running in the future too. If he gets to 35 years old and it's not able to steal as many bases, like it's going to be even harder to get to that trajectory as well. If he has those like 5 top seasons as a two-way player, yeah, you could start having that conversation. Not right now, and definitely not to the influence level that Michael Jordan has brought to the game of basketball.
It's ridiculous.
You can make the argument he's the 3rd best player in the league this year. There's another guy with higher WAR than Ohtani, and that's Bobby Witt Jr. Bobby Witt Jr. has been absolutely incredible. That guy, his hitting is right on par with Ohtani. Ohtani's got obviously the better stats with the home runs and stolen bases, but it's not that you have one of the best defensive players in the world in Bobby Witt Jr. playing up the middle. His defensive value is off the charts, and his offensive value is just a little bit behind Ohtani. Judge's offensive value is unlike anything we've really ever seen. People don't realize that Judge is doing something right now that's not happened in baseball. He's since 2022, he's got a stretch where he's well over 200, OPS plus, where he is twice as good, not just at 100's average, 200's impossible, and he's over 200 for a 3-year span. That's never happened before. Ever, even going back to Babe Ruth.
And here's even more, and I want to get into the next subject, but this is even more impressive about what Aaron Judge has done. Aaron Judge has he's hit 300 home runs quicker than any player in baseball history. We're speaking about Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, any one of those guys, you name it, Barry Bonds, every one of those guys, Mark McGwire, all these great home run hitters. Aaron Judge did it faster than any one of those guys. Any one of those guys. And remember, Aaron Judge came into the league when he was like 25 years old. He was 25 when he played his first game in the major leagues. I think that's more impressive than what everybody keeps talking about with Shohei Ohtani. I'm not taking away from what Shohei Ohtani has done this year. It's very, very impressive. It's amazing. I'm just sick and tired of hearing about it, saying that he's the Babe Ruth of baseball. And then everybody now is trying to compare him to Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. First, it's Babe Ruth, the greatest baseball player. Now they're comparing him to arguably the greatest football player and arguably the greatest basketball player. It's ridiculous. He's not even close to be on Mount Rushmore for his respectable sport. He's not even close. He's not even the best player in baseball right now to say that he's the greatest baseball player ever. It's ridiculous. On the Pat McAfee show, Aaron Rodgers took shots at reporters who questioned the Jets team culture, saying that the Jets culture has been a good vibe. Rodgers was referencing an article written by Athletics' Ben Stadig, that said that the Jets were completely disarray. Rodgers also took shots at Haason Reddick's agent, Tory Dandy, saying that he was the source of why people have been taking shots at the New York Jets. He added that Dandy and Reddick are doing everything they can to say negative things about the New York Jets because Reddick isn't signed. Reddick requested a trade from the Jets last month and wants a deal no less than $25 million per year. Dandy says there is going to be an expected decision on Reddick soon within the next 2 weeks. You know why there's going to be a respected decision? Because he's going to go to the Jets. He's going to play this year because he doesn't want to be on this team next year. That's why the Jets are going to negotiate a deal right now, because he doesn't want to be there next year, and he wants to make sure he goes to free agency. He's lost a lot of money, and Dandy's lost a lot of money because he gets a percentage of that as an agent. So you sit here today and you wonder, why is these stories coming out? Now, Aaron Rodgers, he's going to go on the Pat McAfee show. He is going to gossip. That's who Aaron Rodgers is. He's become a gossiper. That's what he is. As long as he gets on the football field every single Sunday, Thursdays, or Mondays and puts up, a great game, throws 300 yards and wins a football. You don't even have to throw 300 yards. You could throw 180 and win a football game. As long as you're winning football games, Aaron, you can say whatever you want. You can say anything. You can tell me the world's ending. You can tell me Osama bin Laden's going to be the next quarterback for the New York Jets after you, if he's still alive. I don't care what you think, okay? As long as you get on a field and win games. That's all I care about with a guy like Aaron Rodgers. On a Pat McAfee show, he obviously wants to be funny. He always has his own opinion towards things. And listen, I do believe when the Jets are winning, there's good vibes. In any team culture, if you're winning, there's good vibes. But here's the problem. And I'm going to get into what all these writers are trying to do with the New York Jets. They're trying to stir things up. They're trying to bring up things that have happened in the past. And when things start to happen again this year, turmoil starts, and the Jets go on a 1 or 2 game losing streak, and the Jets aren't winning, and they're losing against teams they should beat, what's going to happen? Then all of a sudden, this story from The Athletic comes out. Oh, maybe there's some truth to it. And then you're going to hear other writers come out, as we all seen over the last couple of months with the New York Jets. If something happens, in the locker room, or something happens at the practice field. I remember the whole Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson thing. They're not getting along at practice. They're arguing. I mean, when you have 2 competitors out there that want to win and expect to have a good season, what do you think they're going to do if they're not on the same page? They're going to argue. They're going to complain. I don't know what everybody doesn't understand when it comes to a competitive nature and being a professional athlete. Now, the whole Haason Reddick situation is an absolute joke. It is a joke. It really is. Because Haason Reddick and Tory Dandy told the Jets before they made this trade, no matter what happens, I'm going to play a full season. I'll play on my final year contract, and then we can negotiate a deal before the trade deadline. If we can't come to an agreement, I go to free agency, and there she blows. That was the deal when the Jets sat down before they made that trade, because they knew they weren't going to re-sign Bryce Huff. And everybody knew that Haason Reddick did not want to go back to the Eagles because there was something going on in that locker room last year. Something. And Haason Reddick had something to do with it. This thing with Haason Reddick, and obviously Dandy knows they're coming to an agreement. And why does he know? Because what are we going in? We're going into week 4, right? It's week 4. Mm-hmm. Week 8 is the trade deadline. 7 or 8 is the trade deadline in the middle of the season. They have to decide what they're doing, if he's going to sit out for the rest of the season, or he can somehow push his way out of the Jets and he gets traded somewhere else. But we all know Joe Douglas isn't going to trade him. He already set out that he is not going to trade him. So now you're hearing that in the next 2 weeks, there's going to be something happening. There's going to be a decision made. The reason why the decision is going to be made in 2 weeks is because in 2 weeks, yes, starting this week, it will be week 6, week 7. So there has to be an agreement, because if they don't make an agreement, Haason Reddick doesn't play this year, and then he has to come back next year on another full season and have to play for the Jets and playing at the same price or even probably less. So why would he do that when he's losing money right now? What is he losing? He's losing like $600,000 a week, not showing up to the Jets. There's no way he's going to continue doing this season and losing money. He's 30 years old. He's going to be 30 this year. That means how many years left does Haason Reddick have? How many top-end years as a defensive lineman does he have? He probably has 3 more years, and that's probably what he's going to get wherever he goes. It might not be the Jets. It might be the Lions or wherever he decides to go, whoever decides to give him the most money. He's not, and most of that money is not even going to be guaranteed because he's 30 years old and he's a defensive lineman. If he was in his 20s, mid-20s, and he was doing what he's done over the last 4 years or last 3 years with the Eagles, yeah, then he would be getting that kind of money and guaranteed money. But he's not that player anymore, and he's now trying to scavenge up whatever he can possibly get because he knows this is probably going to be his final contract.
Yeah, and you look at the situation with the Eagles, the way that fell out ugly with the Eagles at the end of the season. We talked about Sirianni a couple months ago, like the toxicity at the end of the year and whether he was at risk to lose his job. A.J. Brown wanted to be traded at that time before he got extended by the Eagles. Like, there was something going on there. And now Haason Reddick's going to use the Jets as a scapegoat for everything that's going on, and Tory Dandy's going to make it seem like, oh, this is a typical Jets, same old Jets all over again, because it gets headlines. Like anything Aaron Rodgers does already got headlines, even when
because they've been a clown organization forever. They've been a clown organization all these years, even since Rex Ryan, when they went to back-to-back AFC title games, they were a clown organization. What did they call them? The New York Clowns. That's what they called him. Right. I mean, Rex Ryan would go to press conferences with a mop on his head. He was trying to pretend that he was his brother when his brother was the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
This is what they were. They were a clown organization run by an owner that at one point, and when Donald Trump was in office at the time, he went over there to England. Instead of run his own football team, he was out there trying to, be a part of this whole spiel over there. And I don't even know what you call what he was doing over there.
I think he was an ambassador.
An ambassador. Why do I want Woody Johnson to be an ambassador for the United States over there in England? I would rather him be over there running my organization and hoping my organization actually wins a Super Bowl after 50 some odd years.
And then he comes back and they have Zach Wilson. So that helped his cause.
I mean, it's pathetic. It really is pathetic. So yeah, they are a clown organization. They haven't been a clown organization for the last 2 years.
No,
they haven't. Robert Saleh is a clown. I mean, I'm sorry, Bambi clown, or Bambi. He is a Bambi clown, but Bambi Saleh, he's been one of those guys that you just question some of his play calling, some of the things that he does on the sideline, some of the things that he's done. I mean, even when I watched Hard Knocks, I mean, there are things that, Saleh has done that just makes me shake my head. And everybody says, well, Saleh's done a great job this year. What has he done?
Yeah.
Who's he beat? He's beaten nobody. They have beaten nobody. For all you Jet fans out there that think that this is so impressive of what he did on Thursday night, what was so impressive is that Aaron Rodgers actually believes in his offensive line. Now you see him run outside of the pocket. He's making plays that we remember him doing over there in Green Bay. He hasn't done in almost 2.5 years. That was impressive. Not what the play calling of Robert Saleh and Nathaniel Hackett. It was pathetic, actually, some of the play calls. At some points, I was wondering, what the hell are they doing? And that's the problem. What are they going to do when they're playing a good run-stopping team and all they keep doing is they're running the ball on the first down, running the ball on the second down, and sometimes running the ball on the third down? They run the ball too much. And last week, the one thing I could say they did right is they let Aaron Rodgers take over the playbook. That's what they did. Hey, Aaron, do whatever you want. You want to use the tight ends? Use the tight ends. You want to use a wide receiver that you never heard before, or he's just a punt returner? Use him, Gibson. Use whoever you want. Just get the ball out of your hands as quick as possible and protect yourself. And that's what he did. He slid. He did all the right things, but he played a team. And again, the New England Patriots are a good defensive team. But when you find their weaknesses start to implode the strengths of the team. And that's what it did. It imploded. Everything that good happened to them over the last 2 weeks because they're a good run-stopping defense. After everything started to implode, they couldn't stop the run. So And that's what usually happens when you have a power back like Allen, who just is beating you and beating you up. It opens up seams. And then, as you watched on Thursday, it opened up seams so long and so big that these tight ends were getting open. These wide receivers were getting open. And even some of the fullbacks and the two fullbacks that the Jets use that are tight ends. I mean, everybody was open on Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, again, I mean, you mentioned a good point, too, with the amount of talent that the Jets have and the amount of talent that the Jets could use with the depth that they have, and they're still not getting to their point. But that's also not saying that the Jets are the same old Jets, and that's why I think this argument that Tory Dandy and Haason Reddick are making just shows they're more of the issue here, and the Jets are just being duped by the fact that they haven't done anything yet. Yeah, okay, you want less than $25 million a year or more than $25 million a year, okay, but again, you need to know that you're 30 years old. And yes, while you're coming off double-digit sack seasons, fine. You need to realize the Jets' cap space. You need to realize that the Jets are a contending team. And they are a good culture. Aaron Rodgers creates a good culture there. Now, you're right. Robert Saleh has a question mark. But Aaron Rodgers, for years with the Packers, was a stabilizer. Yes, he's crazy. Yes, he's eccentric with all his relationships and stuff like that. I'm not saying like he's a role model off the field, but like he's a good leader on the field. And there's a reason the Packers have made the playoffs so many times with so many rotational rosters.
You know what bothers me about Jets and people speaking about the Jets? I am a Jet guy. I am a Jet fan. Sometimes people probably wonder if I really am a Jet fan because of the way I attack them over and over and over again and how much I can't stand Bambi Sala. And by the way, what is this? How do you
Carito.
Carito.
Welcome back.
Shout out to Carito for joining us and all the fans out there that listen to us. But what bothers me more than anything is the Jets haven't done anything yet. And Haason Reddick and his agent or whoever is speaking for him right now, I don't understand where they think there's so much turmoil with the New York Jets. There is no turmoil. The Jets are going out there week by week and they're playing the game. When they start to lose and some things start to come out, which is done, has been done before, then you can start saying, well, there's turmoil in that locker room. That's why I don't want to be there. How about what you did over there with the Eagles last year? How much turmoil was going on over there with the Eagles? Why weren't the Eagles as good as they should have been last year? Everybody thought the Eagles were a team that you didn't want to play in the playoffs. Well, they didn't look that good in the playoffs. They didn't look that good in the regular season, especially the last 6 games of the season. They lost against the New York Jets. They lost
the Cardinals.
They lost their first game in their team history against the New York Jets. Okay.
Can we talk more about why that was so bad last year and why it's still bad this year, despite Saquon Barkley being, of course, as we expected, the best player in all of the NFL through the first 3 weeks of the season? Nick Sirianni, there was a play in the middle of that Eagles game where it was late in the half and they decided to run the ball and they ended up not having enough clock to score the way that they should have. And it turns out after the game, Sirianni overruled Kellen Moore, his offensive coordinator, and decided to go against analytics and just use his gut. And that's the type of stuff you hear from guys that are going to be fired. Kellen Moore was given to him because they couldn't run offense last year. It was like when the ownership's like, this is your new guy. He's going to make it better for you. Do what he says. And he's overruling him. You could already see the fractures going on in Philly with that coaching staff. And the big problem is the same problem as it was last year. Nick Sirianni. I love to see it personally as a Giants fan. I love to see that his dirtbag antics, and I'm going to use that only when I talk about Eagles and Cowboys. Everyone else I'm very nice to.
I mean, did you see what Jalen Carter did this past week?
Yeah.
I mean,
well, we know about him.
And I understand there's a lot of ex-Eagles that loved what he did. I think, and what I'm not going to mention the Eagles that I remember, that I've seen their podcasts and I've seen extra Eagle players over the last, I would say 24 to 48 hours speaking out what Carter did. The problem is what he did and how he did it at the end of the game. And by the way, they did win the game, but they won by what? 3 points? They won by a field goal.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not impressive. What are you bragging about? Panting and crying over there on the sidelines. And Sirianni going up to him and trying to calm it down. I would have suspended him. I would have fined him for what he did. That was embarrassing. Nobody cares what they did in the game. All they're talking about is what Carter did at the end of the game. And by the way, What happened last year with Haason Reddick over there in the locker room? The stories that were coming out, and by the way, everybody's upset right now with the way Bryce Huff has played. They gave him $18 million. They signed him to a 3 or 4 year deal, and Haason Reddick still not signed. And you're hearing stories that if Haason Reddick becomes available, that they would be interested in making a trade and bringing him back. What are you, nuts? He didn't want to be there in the offseason. That's why you traded him. And now you want to bring him back and create more turmoil there because you can't find a pass rush? I mean, that's a problem. You want to talk about disarray? I mean, people forget that. I am a Jet fan, but I like the Eagles too. So I do root on the Eagles. I know what's going on over there in Eagletown, all right? Besides them eating horse crap, okay? I know what they do, and I know the situation with the fans, and that's why nobody likes Eagle fans. But there's a lot of disarray over there, but I haven't heard Tory Dandy talk about the Eagles and the disarray from last year. Not at all. All we're hearing from their mouths is the New York Jets. There's too much disarray. My client is unsure if he wants to sign there. What's going on with the contract? That's not what was said when you decided. Yes, when you decided that your client wanted to be traded there. Sports Illustrated's Albert Breer reports that there is a good possibility that the Jaguars could pursue Bill Belichick in the offseason. Breer mentioned on the Dan Patrick Show that there is a strong relationship between Bill Belichick and Tony Khan, the son of the Jaguars owner, Shed Khan. Bill Simmons also mentioned on his show that Belichick would be the perfect fit to change the team's culture with the Jaguars. The Jaguars in 2016 hired Doug Marrone as their head coach and Tom Coughlin as the president of football operations, who both have ties with Bill Belichick. Peterson is 18-19 in just over 2 seasons with the Jaguars as the head coach and 1-1 in the playoffs. The Jaguars are one of just 3 teams that are 0-3 this season, along with the Titans and the Bengals. And by the way, the Bengals is just unbelievable. I cannot believe the Bengals are 0-3. Jaden Daniels is special. I mean, I think we all do believe now that Jaden Daniels, and when you look at Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels, 2 guys that are going to be up for Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, they've been both very impressive. Who I'm going to give you guys some looks over here. Malik Neighbors is a top 5 wide receiver right now in the NFL, and Jaden Daniels in the first 3 weeks of his career is 2-1 and has thrown almost 600 yards. I mean, that's impressive for a guy that was really expected to be a dual threat and beat a Bengals team that everybody thought was going to run away, especially when they needed a win on Monday Night Football. So it was and he beat Joe Burrow, and everybody thinks that, and including yours truly, thinks he's the second best quarterback right now in the NFL. And he's going into his first season as 0-3. And how many 0-3 teams have made the playoffs? Very few. So the chances of the Bengals squeaking into the playoffs with Baltimore now 1-2 and a 3-0 Justin Fields Pittsburgh Steelers defense, it's going to be very, very hard this year with the AFC as strong as it is. So I do believe there's some truth to the story. Tom Coughlin is still involved with football operations right now with the Jaguars. Tom Coughlin also is part of the Bill Parcells tree. And there's a lot of questions to why Bill Belichick doesn't have a job going into this season, because I did believe that he was the best fit for the Atlanta Falcons. Everybody did. And then we heard stories that Robert Kraft reached out to Arthur Blank, and told Arthur Blank that do not hire him. He's not a good fit over there, and saying whatever he said behind closed doors. I do believe that Bill Belichick is going to have options this offseason. It could be with the Giants. If the Giants don't continue playing better, I do believe the Cowboys are going to be a team up for grabs at the end of the season, no matter what, because I don't know if Mike McCarthy can win the big game and get this team to an NFC title game. If the Cowboys don't go to an NFC title game this year, and right now they don't look like they're making the playoffs, if the Cowboys don't go to an NFC title game, McCarthy is gone. So you all know what Jerry likes to do. He likes to bring in big name players and big name coaches. So it would just be fitting for Bill Belichick to go over there. But I don't know if he would like to coach for Jerry because Jerry runs the team and he picks the players, and Bill doesn't like that. So I don't know if that's a good fit. The Jaguars are a great fit. And the reason why they're a great fit is they would give him the reign. He would be the GM and he would be the coach. He would absolutely, the ownership over there would absolutely let Bill Belichick take over for that organization. He has his starting quarterback in Trevor Lawrence that he can rebuild and get him to believe in himself again. And then he has a defense that's actually pretty good. I mean, they haven't played well this year, but they have some pretty good players on the defensive side of the ball. They just haven't been playing for Doug Peterson. And they have good offensive options. They do. They drafted a good wide receiver that looks like he's going to be a player. They have Christian Kirk, who's absolutely disappeared. Evan Ingram hasn't had a season yet. He hasn't played at all this year. So we haven't seen much of him, Mr. Pot Hands, but last year he was fantastic. I mean, he's got enough to take a team to the playoffs in his first year. It makes a lot of sense. The Jaguars would give Bill Belichick all the reins to coach that team and run that organization. The GM will be fired. That whole the ownership will let him take the reins. The executives will be gone. He'll be able to bring in his coaches. He'll be able to bring his scouting. He'll be able to bring, I bet you Josh McDaniels will be the offensive coordinator over there. It'll probably happen. So it makes a lot of sense. The connections with Tom Coughlin, the organization with the ownership over there, as Bill Belichick has a good relationship with the son of the owner, Tony Khan, who owns also AEW. He's gone. I've heard Bill Belichick loves wrestling. He's been to a couple of AEW events. So I think there's some kind of connection with that. So Albert Breer isn't wrong. And Albert Breer, usually when he comes out with something and he's bringing up something, there's some kind of truth to it. I met Albert Breer recently at a summit. I do believe that when he says certain things and he's writing certain stories, he has an inside source that's telling him that. I just think that with Bill Belichick, it's not going to just be the Jaguars. And everybody that thought, and who do we have on the show recently that said that who's to say that Bill Belichick is even going to get a job now? He could be done. He's lost his way. Bill Belichick will have a job next year. There's no question he'll have a job next year. And there's a guy right now that's not coaching who won Coach of the Year, who used to coach the Titans, another Bill Belichick disciple that is not hired right now and is looking for a job.
Yep. It's with the Browns, like a defensive consultant right now. So
he's going to have a job too. Yeah. So, I mean, to me right now, he's going to have his pick of the litter. He's going to have his pick where he wants to be. Bill Belichick is going to have to make the right decision. He's going to have to spin the dreidel, and hopefully it lands on Gimel, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean, Fish. But yeah, there you go. But I just think right now, if you're the Jaguars, this is a team that was a borderline playoff team last year. They choked at the end of the season. They lost 3 games in a row. They lost the division from the Texans. And honestly, going into this season, I thought that this was going to be an open division. I thought this division could have gone either way. Indianapolis hasn't looked good. They haven't looked good. I mean, 2 out of the 3 teams have looked horrible. And the other 2 teams, even though the Texans right now are what, 3-0?
2-1.
2-1, I'm sorry.
They got smoked by the Vikings.
They're 2-1. They're 2-1, but even them, in certain aspects of their game, they have not looked at as the top echelon, team in the AFC. So they're the 2 teams that have looked sensational this year out of the AFC, the Buffalo Bills and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Those are the 2 teams in the AFC that have looked really unbeatable. And everybody says, well, Justin Fields hasn't looked unbeatable. You don't need a spectacular Justin Fields to win, and we have a defense that good. So, and as far as Buffalo, I didn't expect this defense to be as good as it is. They're unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, they're even better than they were last year, and they lost their whole secondary, and they lost Milano for the whole season practically. Milano's not going to be back until the end of December.
They lost another linebacker too. Terrell Bernard's hurt as well.
So it's amazing how they're playing, and right now, somebody's going to win Coach of the Year as well from Buffalo. So and this is a guy that was on the hot seat going into the season.
Right.
So I just think that you're looking at this whole Bill Belichick thing wrong because there could be multiple teams. And by the way, congratulations to Jim Harbaugh. I know everybody can't stand the guy and all that other stuff. Jim Harbaugh taking over a team that had nothing. Their wide receiving core, crap. I mean, who's their number one wide receiver? Quinn Johnston?
McConkey, a rookie, probably.
But Quinston Johnson has been he's
played well. Yeah.
Quinn Johnston's probably the number one guy. Okay. Their team, they have a running back, DK Dobbins, who a lot of people were unsure about this year. He's been one of the best running backs in the league. I mean, the offensive line has to be a top 5 offensive line. I mean, Slater and Alter are beastly. That offensive line has been awesome. I mean, this could be a playoff team this year. They have looked, it's crazy to say that, they've looked better than the Chiefs. They have looked better than Chiefs. So I'm not saying they're going to beat the Chiefs. I said they look better than I wouldn't be surprised if they beat the Chiefs. I wouldn't be surprised if they beat the Chiefs.
Quickly before we get our guest on, it makes a lot of sense for the Jaguars too, because Trent Baalke is not a good GM either, and he's been overdue to be fired after the Urban Meyer debacle as well. Like they should have fired him on the spot. Like a fresh new coaching staff. So Bill Belichick getting those GM reins is perfect for that kind of team.
Fish, what were you going to say?
Let me give you the Haason Reddick celebration. The thumbs up to a thumbs down. Take a look at Doug Peterson's career record. I just went through it. One season with 10 wins, and it was the year they won the Super Bowl. Never over 10 wins ever besides that in his career. Been over 500 a lot, but he's never been an elite coach outside that one year when he had Frank Reich and all the things fell into place. Nick Foles, all the gutsy call against Belichick with the Philly special. That was the only year that he had all the mojo going. He flamed out his last year in Philly, 4-11-1, and it is an 0-3 start right now. He's done this before. We see this track record where it's going. It's not going well for these guys. There's no way that Trevor Lawrence, who's got worse stats somehow than Daniel Jones in the first handful, like about equal, but now below it in his first few years in the league, he's missing wide open guys with clean pockets, guys. He threw a pick to DeMar Hamlin in that game that he had no pressure in his face, a perfect pocket, and just airmailed a wide open receiver. That can't be happening if you're going to be an elite quarterback. And that tells you that they're not practicing right. You're paying him $55 million. What's going on? I mean, it has to come with the coach's training. There's something going on that's really just not working for the Jags right now. They are one of the worst teams in the league. It doesn't matter the talent they have on defense. If they're going to run offense like this, they got no chance.
They're not drafting a quarterback in next year's draft class. So Shohei Sanders or any of these guys that you're hearing. So even if they are the worst team in the NFL by the end of the season, what are they drafting? A defensive player? I mean, where do you go in the offseason? This is not a draft where you're getting an all-out play. Now you can bring in Hunter. Hunter is a special player. He can play wide receiver and corner. Maybe that's where they look. But they just drafted a good wide receiver. So why would they go there unless they want to use Hunter as a corner? And I don't think that's been their weakness all season long, was the corner play either. I don't think that's the problem either. I think the problem right now is the offensive side of the ball. And this year, this class of offensive linemen, there might not be a top 5 offensive linemen in this class. So last year would have been the year to draft the offensive line help. So there's a lot of questions to the Jaguars, and if Bill Belichick does take over for this organization and this team, could he fix it? This is a team that might be untouchable as far as Bill Belichick is concerned. So there's a lot of questions, and I'm interested to see how this is going to play out at the end of the season. I believe Doug Peterson will be fired before the season's end. He will be fired before the season is over. If they go out this coming week and they lose again and they go 0-4 and Trevor Lawrence looks as bad as he has, you have to fire Doug Peterson. I don't want to hear what Doug Peterson say on all these podcasts saying that he believes that we have a good understanding, ownership has a good understanding, and they still believe in me. How did they believe in you when they just paid your franchise quarterback $55.5 million and he is throwing 68, 69 yards in a half? I mean, come on. You can't tell me, you can't sell that to me and say, hey, you know what? He's worth every penny. I mean, I know the Khan family have a load of money. He's a multi-billionaire because of the oil and all the different things he owns. To me, If I'm an owner of an organization right now that has a quarterback making that much, and I have players bringing in a significant amount of money, and this team can't even buy a win, even try to win, they can't even buy one. So it is a big problem moving forward. And as an organization, you have to, it's all about winning. So if you're not bringing in wins, what are they going to do? They're going to blame somebody. They're going to blame the coach, not the players. When we come back, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking to former Yankees, Guardians, and Rangers pitcher Nick Goody.